I'm always surprised that we have a brand new story every time we release a newsletter, but here we are. This particular story was so interesting that I decided to get up and record a video. My name is Patrice Davis. I am the founder and CEO of GrantWorks. GrantWorks is a grant consulting firm that helps organizations find, obtain, manage, and comply with public and private sector grants. And we release a bi-weekly newsletter, and every edition of that newsletter includes a grant fraud, grant misuse article. And again, always surprised that we always have brand new articles every 2 weeks. This particular story, I'm going to go ahead and just break it down a little and then always bring it back to some of the things that we always try to emphasize at GrantWorks. So let's go ahead and take a look at this story. So an executive director at a nonprofit in Ohio was convicted in July of this year, July of 2025, to 2 years in prison and 3 years of supervised release. In addition, the organization that she led has been closed since 2022. So whatever the services were that organization was providing is no longer being provided by that organization. And from what I understand, funding has been redirected to another organization. So what did this executive director do? According to court documents and according to several articles that I've read, from 2019 to 2021, this executive director withdrew almost $400,000 from the nonprofit's bank account to gamble. And she took those funds, those were federal funds that were sitting in the account, and she withdrew the funds. Apparently, the first withdrawal was for about $92,000. Interestingly, these withdrawals were done from the casino. One of the things I do want to point out is that in addition to withdrawing those funds, she also presented fraudulent paperwork to support those costs because she, of course, is aware that you need to be able to support costs that are being charged to a federal grant, a state or local government grant, quite frankly, any grant. You need to make sure that you have paperwork to support those costs. So this also brings me back to why I decided to record this video. I decided to record this video because I'm always emphasizing how important it is that when organizations receive a grant, they need to make sure they have effective financial management systems in place, especially if it's a federal grant. Quite frankly, again, federal, state, or local government grant, you must have an effective financial management system in place. One of the things that we did, and one of the training programs that we offered several years ago, and we've offered it several times, is internal controls, your first line of defense. So when I saw this article, and it's going to be featured in the newsletter that goes out to our community tomorrow, one of the first things that came to mind were, what were the internal controls that were in place that would allow this executive director for 2 years to withdraw huge sums of money from the organization's bank account and then present fraudulent paperwork to support those costs. And there are two of several internal controls that came to mind. And two of them, of course, are segregation of duties. Immediately made me think, okay, who is overseeing who, or who was overseeing whom at that organization, and who, not necessarily who was overseeing whom, but also, who did what within the organization. And then, of course, who validated some of those activities. And the second internal control that came to mind, of course, is transaction and activity reviews. Those are just two of several internal controls that came to mind. But just want to make sure that you all saw this as, just a really great example of how not having an effective financial management system in place that integrates really important internal controls can lead to grant fraud and misuse. So again, I'm Patrice Davis, CEO of GrantWorks. If your organization is looking for grant consultants who've actually managed grants for years, grant accountants, internal auditors, and other folks that have quite a bit of experience to help your organization avoid these kinds of scenarios, reach out to us. And if you want to get that newsletter that I mentioned, again, every 2 weeks we have a new story. You can click the link below and you can easily subscribe to our newsletter. All right, thank you.